Well, Ark here, and today we're going to be going over which builds for DK are going to be best going into Season 4 of Dragonflight. We're going to go over Frost DK, Unholy DK, Breath, Obliterate, Frost Scythe, Defile, all the builds that I can think of that will be viable. I also got a lot of new shit going on in my room. Check this shit out. Look at my mama got me. Look at that shit. Isn't that cute? Look at that. It's like a little Dutch oven. It's a candle wax burner. And then I got a bunch of LEDs and shit. And check this shit out. Look at this light bulb. Flashbang warning. I could fucking change the room to red. Look at me. I look like I'm in a fucking rave. Watch this shit. Bro, it's like a fucking Travis Scott concert. Today, we're going to be starting off with Frost DK. My personal favorite spec for DK. I also have a script right here so I don't go too off track like I usually do. Literally on my second channel I have a 17-minute video of me being off track. But first we're going to be starting out with Frost. Frost is my personal favorite spec, especially Breath of Sindragosa, which is going to be the first one we're going to be talking about. Released in Warlords of Draenor, Breath of Sindragosa is a 2-minute cooldown that drains your runic power every second, but does damage in return to your targets. Most of its damage is to your primary target. This ability right now sucks in Mythic Plus and outdoor content, mainly because you have to hold it for 1 minute and 30 seconds, and even in super high keys I don't even think packs last that long, nor are you able to get all your damage out in that time, versus like say a Fire Mage or a Shadow Priest or even a Devastation Evoker's damage is more efficient. But for raid, most bosses in Image Wrestle you can hold your breath for a very long time. The only place it suck is maybe Larry, due to him jumping off and out. That's probably the only place where Breath would suck. Don't get it twisted, Breath is a good cleave ability, but in my opinion I do believe Breath is primarily good for single target fights. Now going into Obliterate, the two-handed Obliteration build focuses around the talent Obliteration, which was introduced in its current form in Shadowlands, after the Frost community begged for two-handed Frost build to come back for years since Legion, since they got rid of it. Since then, Obliteration has been the most popular spec for Frost and the easiest to pick up for beginners who are coming too well. But its major drawback is that its single target ain't all that good unless you have boss modifiers like Gnarroot and Smolderon, where you can get 1 million damage crits, which is amazing. It gets old pretty quick if you can't get a big crit anymore. So personally, I do like Obliteration. It's what I use mostly for world content, and also the stat priority between Obliterate and Breath are different. But now going into Frost Scythe, which is a build we haven't gone since BFA, at least from when since I've been playing DK, we haven't been going this. Frost Scythe was added in Legion and it had a bad start from the beginning and was hated by players out the gate. It's pretty similar to playing Cleave Warrior, but slower and reliant on the Obliteration build anyways. But for me personally, I do like Frost Scythe, and it's essentially the Obliteration build with more consistent AoE. But since they added Cleaving Strikes for Frost DeathKnights, it's been irrelevant and needs a huge tuning done to it in War Within. I loved Frost Scythe during BFA, even though I barely played BFA. I did enjoy the whelp stacking and all the mastery stacking and all the other shit, all the little dragons and whatnot. I hope someday we get a tier set for Frost Scythe, and that it's just as ridiculous as the Survival Hunter tier set was in Shadowlands with all the resets and stuff. Personally, people either hate, like most Frost DK builds besides Obliteration, they either love it or they hate it. Defile was introduced in WoD, similar to Frost Scythe. People hated this out the gate. Blizzard developers tried very hard to get it to be relevant for some reason, even though all players hate how stagnant pulls like Death and Decay and Defile work. Like when the tank has to like move mobs and kite them, and all of a sudden they're out of your Defile, or the boss is out of your Defile, and now it's like a 30-second cooldown, so it's completely over. So either they make Death and Decay reset for some reason, like if targets move out of it, or you get a sudden doom proc, it resets, or they can make it to where it just follows you, like every other class fucking has it. Like how Remorseless Winter should be your cleaving strikes, and Unholy Blight should be your cleaving strikes, not Death and Decay. But Defile in Dragonflight is paired with Super Strain, aka the disease build, which is primarily used in Mythic Plus for insane uncapped target scaling that this build offers for super high keys. Low keys, this disease build fucking sucks, but if you're on like if you're doing plus 20s and up, it's actually a really satisfying build to play. That was either insanely strong or straight up ass, for the simple fact that people only play it if it's good. If it sucks, no one's going to want to play it. Single target build, Army, and Gargoyle. Gargoyle and Army have been staples in the Unholy DeathKnight fantasies, even though I want Army of the Dead to be baseline for all DK specs like God intended. Sadly, at last, Unholy was the only spec allowed to summon its own army. I personally call this build the zombie build because you're just playing around the Commander of the Dead talent, just buffs your army and your Gargoyle, aka your zombies. I personally don't like performing the long-winded opener, but this build is really good for a single target, and it's actually pretty good in cleave situations as well. Now for Festering Ruins, I personally never played the Festering Ruins build. Maybe I did a little bit Legion, but for the most part I'm not that experienced. But here's my brief little summary of it. The Festering Wound build is built off of Bursting Swords and Pestilence. It's primarily an AoE build for straight up cleaving targets, similar to how Frost Scythe functions, but more unique in how it plays. It's really bursting, it's satisfying as fuck to play in high target counts. But if it's worse than DEFILE, nobody's going to be playing it. Now for this part of the video, we're going to be using 4 different websites. We're going to be using Warcraft logs. I don't know how to say this, but the link for this will be in the description. U.GG and Archon, and maybe even Morlock.io. This is mainly going to be for new players if they are watching this. It's a little, website that teaches you, who's the top DPS, the best Frost DK, so you can copy them, their stat priority, the best races, the best talents, the best fucking gear, all of that for the new players, or maybe even experienced players who just don't know about this website. I usually do copy these guys' builds and also study them. But what we're going to be looking at first is this website here. We're going to be going to Naru, and we're going to be looking for which spec right now is currently best for the raid. And if you're thinking one is overtly superior than the others, you will be wrong. For me, I think Obliteration is not that far behind from Breath of Sindragosa. I just think Breath of Sindragosa is a little bit more consistent if you're good at it, right? If you're not like a really good player, I don't really recommend you going Breath of Sindragosa. I do recommend Obliteration, especially if you prefer Obliteration anyways, if you find it more fun. But if you are wanting to go and to do something new, Breath is pretty much my personal favorite, so I could recommend it to people who want to experiment. But for most fights, you'll notice that Breath is at top, right? And when you go to Warcraft logs, you see this little dot right here. It's above everyone else's little dot. This means this is the highest damage you can possibly do in the game, and this is on a Breath DK, a Frost DK, right? The highest damage dealer in the game right now, possibly highest damage dealer, is Frost DK. I'm not sure if they got here because of a bug, because this is extremely outrageous. This is even above Sub Rogue. Right now will probably be the best time to capitalize it, because I'm not sure how well they're going to be doing going into the next patch due to their tier set changing. Right now, I think Breath specifically does a little bit better with Chill Streak than the Obliteration build does, because of the rune resets and all this stuff, and what's that? And the Empower Rune Weapon resets and all the other stuff that the current tier set gives you going into the next season. I do definitely think Frost DK's Mythic Plus is going to be better, but the raid damage is going to get tanked a little bit, just a little bit, but we'll see how it scales. But as you can see, for most fights, Breath is overtaking, and essentially what you're seeing right here are parses, right? The highest parses in the game, and you can click on these little tabs and it will show you the exact build that they went, their exact damage profile, what hit them, what they hit them with, and all kinds of other stuff. This guy's build's a little weird. He uses a two-hander with Breath, but for most cases you would want to use 2 one-handers. I'm not sure why exactly he's doing this. This is some weird experimental shit, and it's obviously paying off for him because he has the top logs in the game. That's something that definitely needs to be studied. But as you can see, Breath does good for most builds, but as you can see, Obliteration, which is pretty much ones you don't see with Breath highlighted right now, or the pretty much Obliterate Giga Chads, they're actually doing pretty good. They're not too far behind. So if you do want to play Obliteration over Breath because you just prefer it, you can go ahead right ahead and do that for Raid. But for Mythic Plus, Obliteration is absolutely just 100% better in all ways. Breath is absolutely dog shit, donkey dick to play in Mythic Plus. Just because you have to coordinate with your tank, you have to coordinate with your group, you have to coordinate your cooldowns perfectly in order for you to maximize, and you also have to be in a super high key for it to feel good. In low keys, I feel like Obliteration feels 100 times better. So I couldn't recommend Obliteration enough, especially with the Legendary. It's so fun to play. Even though I don't have my fucking Legendary because Blizzard fucking hates me. But that's besides the point, right? That's hate towards Blizzard. That has nothing to do with us right here, right now. In my opinion, this is the best build for you. You can just straight up copy this from u.tg, or we can go to Archon. Archon's a little bit more generous with the rankings for Frost Decay and Unholy Decay. They're on the same tier, and they're not really that far off from score. In my opinion, I think they aren't that big of a difference between them, at least currently right now. I think 15k deep. I think a 17k DPS differential isn't that big. I think Frost is going to definitely catch up in the next season with the new tier set coming in, with the big dragons, all those big dragons coming out, big ass burst numbers. So let me summarize everything I just said, that bucket of information. For Raid, you're going to be wanting to go Breath of Sindragosa for high consistent damage and high breath uptimes. It's also probably the funnest for Raid. And for Mythic Plus, you'll just take Obliteration because for one, the cooldowns are better. For two, you don't have to really coordinate with your tank or anything. And three, it is fun seeing all those big numbers. There is one con to Frost that I didn't mention, is that they pull aggro even after the tank pulled, but usually that is a tank check. So if you have a bad tank, you're going to pull aggro and die. Or if you go in too early, then that's your fault. Now going into the Unholy, you're pretty much only going to see the same build over and over again for every fight. It's going to be the zombie build. Whether it's a cleave fight, whether it's a single target fight only, everyone's going the exact same build essentially, with maybe different minor changes. Like with Naruto, some people are going a little bit more left. As you can see here, they're grabbing Epidemic, Unholy Blight, they're grabbing Defile, they're dropping Harbinger of Doom. They're still being able to grab Summon Gargoyle and all the other things you need for specific fights, but for majority of fights it doesn't really exactly matter. You can just go ahead and copy their talents if you're trying to get 100 parses in these specific fights by, as I said earlier, clicking on them and then going to wherever. This is a Russian log, it's going to be a little weird. Let's try to go into a normal log by just going here and hit export, and then you have the talents copied. But essentially everyone is running this exact build. This is the build I always run to in Raid. I prefer to play this over Breath, I'm sorry. And also the stat priority is kind of similar to the Obliteration stat priority. So, fuck it, we rock. So for Raid, pretty much just this build in all fights. And then going into Mythic Plus, we're going to be talking about Super Strain, the Disease build, the Defile build. Some people will hate this, some people will love this. To saturate this in high keys, this pulls way ahead. In low keys, it feels like shit. I'm sorry, you're either going to have to deal with it, or you're just going to have to play Obliteration, which feels 100 times better. And since they have pretty similar stat priorities, except in Obliteration you want maybe a little bit more haste, nah, not really. You still want a bunch of mastery. So regardless, the stat priority is pretty much the same between Obliteration and Unholy. So Super Strain is the best, and also for high target counts, uncapped targets. If you have a coordinated group, it feels great. Uncoordinated, and also with the tier set, you're keeping the same tier set from the current season, right? You're keeping it going into season 4. This tier set is probably one of the best tier sets I have personally ever played with Unholy. Give in mind, I've only been playing Unholy for probably this expansion. I've mained Frost for majority of my time on this planet. Actually, I played Unholy here and there. The original Unholy, right, when I first started playing the game, but I fell in love with Frost and it just got completely thrown to the wayside when I was a turbo casual. But this is super fun. I do love Super Strain. It is kind of annoying with DEFILE though, if the tank, you know, pulls it out of the DEFILE and that's cooldown completely wasted. I'm not going to explain the abilities in this guide, but I do explain it in a previous guide. I have an Unholy DK guide, I have a Frost DK guide. If you need guides, I have them on my channel, and Archon rates it pretty high. So to sum up what I just said, if you're going to be doing raiding, you could just play Army of the Dead build. If you're going to be doing Mythic Plus, Super Strain, the stat priority is pretty much the same between those two, except like minor differences. But for the most case, it's Mastery, Haste, Crit, Verse. And for Obliteration, it's going to be Mastery, Haste, Crit, Verse. And for Breath of Sindragosa, it's going to be Mastery, Crit, Haste, right? That's pretty much the only one that really changes between all the builds. But yeah, for that, that's pretty much it, guys. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you're like me, subscribe. And besides that, let me know how you feel about my room lights. This video format, pretty new. I try my best not to ramble like I usually do. Subscribe to my second channel if you like it when I ramble on. Let me know if you like to see me live stream. I'm not exactly sure if live streaming right now is a good time. I do have college finals coming up. I don't have a lot of time to edit. But besides that, peace.